Before we delve into our three paintings tonight, I thought it would be helpful to contextualize the Baroque era in the timeline of artistic developments of the 15th, 16th, and 17th century. To help to visualize the chronological progression of the periods of art we have been talking about for the last 3 weeks, I have made this abbreviated schematic timeline. Artistic developments are somewhat fluid, but it can be said that the Renaissance, and from the 1400s to 1520, Mannerism started around 1520 and came to an end around 1600. The Baroque era started around 1590 and lasted until the 1720s. I will show a few examples for each of these three periods to help to understand the differences between the Renaissance, the Mannerism, and the Baroque art. Renaissance art implemented the newly established rules of linear perspective, with its horizontal line or ocular lines and vanishing point for the deception of depth, as we have discussed last week. In addition, artists used horizontal and vertical lines as well as triangular shapes to give the compositions stability. These are two examples of Renaissance art. On the left is the Crucifixion by Andrea Mantegna, in which the use of distinctly vertical and horizontal lines are clearly shown by the superimposed lines in yellow and in purple. So the vertical and the horizontal lines. The vertical lines in purple are emphasized in the poles of the three crosses, and the three horizontal lines in yellow are created at the top by the three beams of the crosses, in the middle section by the feet of the condemned, and the tops of the heads of the perspective people visiting, and at the bottom with the lateral lines in the space of the base. The triangular shape composition, as we discussed last week in Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper, also applies to sculptures during the Renaissance. Consider the famous Pietà by Michelangelo in St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. As seen from here, the pedestal and Mary's legs comprise the base, with Christ, who is markedly smaller than Mary, on her lap in the middle of the sculpture, and Mary's shoulders and head marking the peak of the triangle. Here again, the yellow triangle has been superimposed onto the image of the sculpture to visualize the composition. Later in the Renaissance, Mannerism originated as a reaction to the harmonious classicism and the idealized naturalism of high Renaissance art, as practiced by Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Raphael in the first 2 decades of the 16th century. This is in contrast to the Mannerist obsession with style and technique in figural composition, often outweighing the importance and the meaning of the subject matter. Mannerists often use bizarre and sometimes bilious colors. Figures were depicted in convoluted serpentine poses, as you can see in the picture by El Greco from 1600 here on our left. So they use quite often these yellowish colors, and the poses are really twisted. Mannerism often made use of illogical compression of space, and depicted figures with elongated proportions and exaggerated anatomy. This is demonstrated in one of the most famous Italian Mannerist oil paintings by Parmigianino, the Madonna with the Long Neck, dated from 1535, here I'm writing. I think the title gives it very clearly. So, and also the Christ has extremely elongated limbs. It's almost falling off. I mean, one will almost run into it and catch the baby. Many of these works appear strange and unsettling, frequently creating a feeling of anxiety. Mannerist-style Christian art was often unintelligible to churchgoers and was actually opposed by the Catholic Church. So we covered the Renaissance and Mannerism, so let's move on to the Baroque era. The term Baroque properly derived from the Portuguese word barroco, used to describe an irregular and imperfectly shaped pearl. In contrast to compositions from the Renaissance or Mannerism, artists in the Baroque style built composition on an angle to add drama, to create instability, and to give energy to the work of art. In the example on the left from the Baroque artist Pedro Oranti, diagonals are used in the crucifixion for the effect of great drama. As you can see visualized through superimposed different colored lines. I'm just going to highlight some of the diagonals in this painting. So there's the obvious diagonal shown in yellow, the ladder. And it's even more emphasized by the two figures climbing up the ladder. Another diagonal line in purple begins with Christ's left hand, past his eyes and straight down to the top of the plaque that is to be nailed to the cross above him. A third diagonal line shown in brown begins with the toes of the closest figure on the upper right of the canvas, past the eyes of the three witnesses, and follows down the lines of their bodies. Similarly, now looking at sculpture, and this is one is from Giovanni Bernini, it's the sculptor David, who is about to throw a stone that will bring down Goliath. The diagonal and curvaceous position of the figure, as emphasized by the green, purple, and yellow lines, indicates energy, action, and movement in this work. So this was just a brief overview of the three artistic periods. It is now critical to look at the impact on contemporaneous religious events which profoundly shaped these three artistic periods. An event that transformed the religious, political, and artistic landscape of Europe forever was Martin Luther's display of his 95 Theses at the doors of the Wittenberg Cathedral in 1517, protesting the Catholic Church's corruption. This event represented the beginning of the Reformation. For the next century, Europe was in turmoil as new political and religious boundaries were determined, often through bloody military conflicts. The second critical event was the call of the Council of Trent from 1545 to 1563. Pope Paul III initiated the Council of Trent as the Church's response to the Reformation. They met 25 times and they ended the council in 1563. The Council of Trent was the most important movement of the Catholic Counter-Reformation. the Catholic Church's first significant reply to the growing Protestant Reformation. The primary purpose of the Council was to condemn and refute the beliefs of the Protestant reformers, such as Martin Luther and John Calvin, and also to make the set of beliefs in Catholicism even clearer. Only in 1648, with the sign of the Treaty of Westphalia, did the military conflicts between Protestants and Catholics subside in continental Europe. I think it's really just a military conflict. Just for the sake of completeness, I would like to briefly refer to the contrast on the use of art in Protestant churches versus Roman Catholic churches. On the left, you can see, so the Protestant Reformation triggered a wave of iconoclastic destruction of Christian imagery. Churches were void of their pictures and statues. This is in stark contrast to Roman Catholic churches, following the initiation of the Counter-Reformation. Catholic reformers believed strongly in the educational and inspirational power of visual art. The Catholic Church commissioned large number of paintings in the Baroque style, which were to teach, delight, and persuade the viewers of the message of God. So I think with this, I think it's a good time to start exploring the first of our 3 Baroque pictures of this evening. As you also can see on your handouts, the first painting is the Taking of Christ by Caravaggio from 1602. Born Michelangelo Merisi, Caravaggio is the name of the artist's hometown in Lombardy in northern Italy. In 1592, at the age of 21, Caravaggio moved to Rome. Caravaggio employed close physical observation of dramatic use of the artistic effects of chiaroscuro and tenebrism. We will explore these artistic effects when we talk about this painting, and there's a little definition on the handouts for these 2 sides of effects. Caravaggio made tenebrism the dominant stylistic element of his paintings, fixing subjects in bright shafts of light and darkening shadows. Caravaggio vividly expressed crucial moments and scenes, often featuring violent struggles, torture, and death. Characterized by their dramatic, almost theatrical lighting, Caravaggio's paintings were controversial, however hugely popular as well, and extremely influential on succeeding generations of painters all over Europe, as we will see in our other 2 paintings of this evening. Caravaggio's painting technique was spontaneous. He painted straight onto the canvas with minimal preparation. Barely or no primary drawings have been found by Caravaggio, which is rather unusual. Much to the horror of his critics, he used ordinary working people with irregular, rough, and characterful faces as models for the saints. Now, while we focus on the painting, the Taking of Christ, please listen again to one of the Gospels. And this is Gospel of Mark 14:43-46. I quote, Judas, one of the 12, arrived, and with him there was a crowd with swords and clubs, from the chief priests, the scribes, and the elders. Now the betrayer had given them the sign, saying, "The one I will kiss is the man. Arrest him and lead him away." So when he came, he went up to him at once and said, "Rabbi," and kissed him. Then they laid hands on him and arrested him. And as we have done before, I would like to invite the audience to share with me what they can see in this painting. And again, there's a lot in this painting. There's many things that we can discuss. So maybe, how many figures do we see, and who are the figures? Seven, that's right, yeah. So we have Judas, on the far left we have John, and then we have Jesus and Judas, and there are 3 soldiers, and then there's also one additional man who's holding a lamp.
Judas is wearing armor. No. Also, there's another one in front of him.
Yeah.
Judas laid his hand on him, just like Mark said.
Right, it's very much so. So I think the moment that Caravaggio catched or tried to present was literally that moment. Judas had walked up to Jesus, he touched him, he kissed him, and then it was the sign. So it was kind of a really short moment in that story. And if we think about it, the kiss of betrayal, right? If you compare it to during Mass, we give each other the kiss of peace. So it's very much the opposite. It's because usually the kiss of peace is the peace, unity, and love. But Judas had chosen that as a sign for his betrayal. John, so if anyone has any suggestions? Yeah?
Or no, I was just going to say, the man holding the lantern, I know scholars believe it's like a self-portrait of Caravaggio. He doesn't really belong in the picture because there's 3 soldiers on the right and a strange man just holding a lantern. So it's like Caravaggio inserted himself into the painting for a reason, but the lantern he's holding is not really the primary source of light. You can see the primary source of light on the metal of the soldiers, and it's supposedly, I think, coming from the moon, which is out of sight in the painting. But the other thing that I read about is John is running away, one of Jesus' closest friends, whereas Caravaggio is kind of entering with the lantern. So there's that contrast. The head of Jesus and John the Baptist, or John the Evangelist, are also kind of almost like one. They kind of fuse together.
Right. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for this. You're giving me a lot to talk about with this. Exactly. So John is running away. The interpretation of that is, yes, initially they were afraid of what was happening, but at the end of the day, they are, and then his hands are up like this, they are spreading the story of Jesus, and they are the ones who are writing the gospel. And it's kind of also one can say that his right hand is up, so it's probably his right hand that is up. Yeah, and there's this interesting almost fusing of the 2 heads of Jesus and John, potentially thinking, again, writing the gospel, kind of all the thoughts of Jesus are being given to John, so he has it ready so he can write it down. Then, yeah, Caravaggio, so I think this is really much believed. This is Caravaggio. So he put himself into the painting. It was actually sometimes painters did that, so that wasn't so unusual. And it could be, the interpretation, it could be vain a little bit, like, oh, I'm famous, I put myself in here. But it also could be an interpretation that he is Peter, who kind of steps in, brings the light, and still, although he's hidden in the background, but he is still there to observe the scene. Your remark of the light, exactly. So the two effects that been used very much by Caravaggio are tenorism and chiaroscuro. So tenorism means that the background is set into great darkness. So pretty much all black. And then the main figures, almost a spotlight is being put onto them. It's kind of a stage lighting. That's the definition of tenorism. Chiaroscuro, which we have heard quite often and sometimes is being used interchangeably, is the effect of light and shade, but it helps to depict human forms in a fuller version. Because if you imagine yourself, if someone is in the dark, you can't make out the outline, but as soon as you step forward and a moonlight or something would fall onto them, then you actually start seeing them. And so that's chiaroscuro. So it's the use of light and shade, or darkness, to make a fuller depiction of forms. And yeah, so the light is coming from, it's probably moonlight, and it's putting a spotlight right onto the three figures over here. And then, so the others, the soldiers are in full armor. So they are faceless, they're probably ruthless. So they're just doing the deed. They were told to go and take Jesus and it. Something really interesting. If what I described earlier, so first of all, the diagonal line in this picture is here. So the soldiers and so the figures are all lined up in the diagonal to create this drama. Jesus himself is very much in the diagonal as well. If we also would run a ruler from this corner all the way up to this corner, and from that corner down to here, the dead point of the painting is right in here. This is probably coming from a different light source. So what does this mean? Why is there such a reflective surface in the painting? So scholars interpreted it as potentially as a mirror. And we could see, if we would step into this picture, we probably could see ourselves. So it's kind of a reflection on our self-conscious. And that we will read the story and we will condemn Judas for what he had done. But how many times in our own lives have we sold Jesus? Right? How many times have we done something that probably wouldn't be quite perfect? Yeah, I think so. I think we covered pretty much a lot. Yes, please.
Tell me about the hands.
Oh, his hands. Oh, that's right. Now I haven't really found anything while I was doing my research, and so I can give my own interpretation, but I'm very happy to hear what someone else say. I think during this, in the Renaissance and during the Baroque era, artists very much were aware of the fully human and fully divine personality of Jesus. And I think an artist had to choose a little bit, because it's hard to depict both of it at the same time, so which way do you go? I think in Caravaggio chose more the human side of Jesus. And even though he's accepting his faith, but I think, my interpretation on the hands, he's still probably anxious a little bit. He needs to, as we so often do, we do something with our hands when we get nervous, or so that was my interpretation. But I'm very interested if someone would kind of agree or disagree.
I thought of his resistance to doing something about this. He's submitting.
As he's submitting, yes. Yeah, I think that's wonderful. Yeah.
I also noticed that Jesus is wearing the same red and blue colors that we talked about last week. And scholars have also said that he's not resisting in any way what's going on. So the fact that his hands are kind of folded like that may have been Caravaggio's way of just showing that he wasn't resisting in any way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It just looks incredibly sad.
Yes. Yeah. And I brushed up on my colors a little bit, and there's another painting where we will talk about colors again, but I think the general sense that the red represents the blood of Christ that he will shed for us and our sins, and the blue so that's kind of the human side of Jesus again, and the blue is the heavenly side, because blue kind of blues the colors of the sky. But I also stick with my theory that because blue was a very expensive pigment. We could probably talk for another 20 minutes about, or half an hour about this painting. It's two things I'd like to point out. It's also the way Caravaggio was able to catch and represent facial expression. I think it's beautiful in here, obviously with limited figures, but Judas, he must have been holding on to Jesus to give him the kiss, and he did it. He planned to do it, and he wanted to betray him. It was all kind of a plan, but it's when we look at his hands. On the other hand, I think he doesn't want to let go either. The soldier has to kind of almost take his arm away from Jesus and say, let's go, we're ready to go, we're ready to take him. So I thought that was very impressive too. It's this interplay what humans have, right? You're not 100% sure all the time what you do. You double guess you're not quite sure then. And then one other thing, I overlaid this. So again, I like the technical parts of it. Besides the diagonals in this picture, there's also, one could draw a circle using the arm of the soldier, using the red cloak, that there's a little bit like a halo around Jesus, catches Jews as well. So it's kind of a picture within the picture. And then, as I mentioned earlier, also, if you would draw a line across the picture, and you would see that in all of the pictures. And if you look at pictures from the Baroque, you might just want to do that for fun, but take a ruler or a piece of paper and lay it diagonally across. There's quite often a division of what you see on this half and what you see on this half. And I think, so on this side, we have the biblical story, kind of Jesus and the disciples, and on this side we have just the humans. So again, you'll see that quite often that there is a split diagonally across the painting. So I think, in terms of time, we probably should move on. I left you with a question, and these are questions that come to my mind while I prepare for this lesson during the week, and I ask myself, have I betrayed Christ today? Our second painting for this evening is Christ Before the High Priest by Gerrit van Honthorst. It was created in 1617. Gerrit van Honthorst was born in 1592 in Utrecht, the Netherlands, to a large Catholic family. After his training, Honthorst traveled to Rome. Honthorst's trip to Rome had an inevitable impact on his painting style. He followed the radical, stylistic, and thematic innovations of Caravaggio. He adopted the Italian painter's realism, dramatic chiaroscuro and tenebrism, light, bold colors, and cropped compositions. Honthorst's smooth and elegant approach to allegorical and portrait painting helped him to establish a very successful career as a portrait painter. Once more, I would like to ask you to focus on the painting as I read another part of the Gospel by Mark 14:53 to 63. They took Jesus to the high priest. Now the chief priest and all the council were looking for testimony against Jesus to put him to death, but they found none. Again the high priest asked him, "Are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One?" Jesus said, "I am. And you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of the power, and coming with the clouds of heaven." So, I think this is a painting that's probably not quite as famous, or some people might not be quite as familiar with it. It is very much in the style of Caravaggio. We again have the tenebrism as a lighting effect, so the background is dark, obscure. Another is murky, muddy. Those are words that we use for tenors. But I would like to invite the audience to see if anyone would like to share what they see in this painting.
It seems like it's a very dim, the lighting is very dim, and so it seems like the candle is the only source of light in the room.
That's right. So, and then again, my favorite thing to do, if you run a ruler or a piece of paper through from corner to corner, the flame is the exact middle of the picture. So it was very important for this painting. It has a lot of influence on the painting. So because again, it's the only source of light, and light is what leads us to heaven. So I think it has the connotation for that. So again, there's a rather limited amount of people in this painting. There's, I'm going to say this right, Matthias, the high priest, and he's sitting on the table, and he has the scriptures right in front of him, and the light comes is interrogating him, and kind of really, hand gestures are really important in religious paintings, right? So he's pointing up, so he's saying, "Are you the Son of God?" So I think that's a very typical hand gesture. If you look at Jesus' hands, again, are very similar, I think, to the picture before. He's not resisting. But he's also not intimidated. He stands very much his ground. They're in direct eye contact to each other. So Jesus is not afraid. He's very much in control of the situation.
He almost looks annoyed. He almost looks annoyed.
Yeah. It's kind of have to go through this.
The two figures that are above Jesus' head, they're very faint. You can hardly see them. Yeah, one would wonder what really they would represent, because in the trial before Pilate, you have a crowd yelling, "Crucify him." But here, I'm not so sure who they would represent.
Yeah, and I think they're just bystanders. And I think it kind of can be interpreted as we are bystanders. We just kind of observe the situation, the event, a little bit from the distance. And then again, as Peter did. And since we're talking about the people in the background, there are two on the side of the high priest. They're coming out of colors. They're dressed in black, and I think that we could see that or interpret that as a foreshadowing of Christ's death. I thought what was really interesting was that the high priest and also Jesus are wearing red and white, and just that they're swapped. So Jesus' undergarment is red, and then he's wearing a white gown on top, and they are mirrored with the high priest. And then still, the red color again stands for blood. So in Jesus, he will shed the blood for us. White is quite often interpreted as divine, but also righteousness. So he believes he's right. He will do the right thing. The high priest wearing the shawl in red can be interpreted as he is the one who will shed Jesus' blood. But also he's wearing white because he thinks he's right as well, or he's correct as well. Yes?
In all three of these, it seems to be the fashions and the weapons and the armor are very contemporary to the artist, not to the time period. Is that intentional to bring the audience that way, or is that sort of a lack of archaeological understanding?
I would say I don't think it was lack on Karawaja's lack of knowledge. I think it was very much the intention of them to kind of pull this, take it away from the biblical setting, but put it more into our day situation. And then also, I think that the same was applied here, because these ones very much wear contemporary clothing. So I think it's intentional. The artist made this decision intentional to divorce the biblical story from its biblical setting, but bringing it into our lives.
I find it reminds me of the temptation of Jesus, where the devil was using scripture against Christ, and Caiaphas is using scripture against Christ. And the word made flesh is standing before both of them.
I love that. Exactly. So the word made flesh is standing in, and yes, and he can see it. He can't, he cannot see it. And even though it's using the light, it's right there. You can't miss it, but we can't see it. Yes, I think that's beautiful. So I think in the artists also, since they were very much working in the style of Caravaggio, and they would spend a lot of time looking at these paintings and analyzing them the way we do it now, probably even more in detail. So they would take a lot and learn a lot and very much implement that into their own paintings. And again, if you would run the diagonal line across here, we have the division between Christ on the right, divided or taken parted from the worldly people. So this is this is one of my favorite paintings actually, and we've seen it at the National Gallery, and it also was part of the exhibition Caravaggio and his followers in 2016. It's a beautiful painting, so if you get a chance to go to London, it's definitely worth to visit and see it in real. I think that's the one part that's missing in this lecture. It would be beautiful to have the pictures for real, and that would make it even better.
We'll be in jail.
So, I think now, just in terms of time, we should move on to our third and last Baroque painting for this evening. It is The Denial of St. Peter by Gerard Sayers from 1620 to 1625. Sayers was born in Antwerp, which is in Belgium, in 1591, and became an independent master at the age of 17. He traveled to Rome and studied the work of Manfredi, an important follower of Caravaggio. Sayers adopted Manfredi's style of painting, with its emphasis on half-length figures, illuminated with pronounced contrasts of light and dark. And also, he chose Manfredi's subject matter of card-playing soldiers or card-playing per se, and also in some of his paintings he depicts musicians that play a musical instrument. So for the last time for tonight, look at the painting as I read the Gospel of Mark, 14:66 to 72. One of the servant girls of the high priest came by. When she saw Peter and said, "You also were with Jesus, the man from Nazareth," but he denied it. Then, a little later, while the bystanders again said to Peter, "Certainly, you are one of them. You are a Galilean." But he began to curse, and he swore an oath, "I do not know this man you are talking about." So, this is also a painting very much in the style of Caravaggio. Let's see what we have learned from the two other paintings. If someone like to have a go at it and tell me what you can see.
The lower half, people are all leaning kind of that way. You get a little bit more leaning the other way for your diagonal there.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's kind of the general population, right? I mean, this is because you could run a line kind of across here. Again, you see lots of diagonals. You see the servant, Peter, and one of the soldiers, they line up in the diagonal, and then we have diagonals right across here. And if we would run a line all the way over here, this could actually almost be two independent paintings. And Sayre, he has done that. So if you do a little bit of research on him, you will find paintings that are just basically like this. So he presents the biblical story, sometimes separately. In this one, he presents the biblical story with, again, a human study, human depiction. Let's work our way through it. So if you start on this side, we have tenebralism again. So the background is very dark. We don't really know where they are, if they are in a room or outside. So we don't know, we can't tell. How many sources of light do we have in this painting? The candle, the maid, the servant girl is holding it, and then there's a candle over here, which you can see this candle stand, but not the actual candle. There's a separate light source over here. And then with tenebrism, because the light is very concentrated in certain areas and leaves a lot of the background in the dark, faces and usually hands become very important. And they help us to understand, or they tell the story of what the picture presents. So if you look at the servant girl, we see the same hand again, the same movement of her right hand, and she's pointing her finger up. Again, questioning, aren't you at least related to Jesus Christ, who is the Son of God? The hands of Peter are interesting too, so he pulls it, kind of pulling back, and then he's taking an oath, right? So his left hand is up to take the oath, as we have just heard in the reading. So very much on this side, Sayre represents a biblical story. But one can ask, why did he include this? Right? I mean, why did he include people gambling? Right? Playing cards, this little, and I don't know, can anyone see what's happening here? Can you see that? So he's putting his hand on the back, and he's holding a couple of cards in there. So I think he's up for a little bit. He's trying to cheat. So we have a gentleman who's dressed in probably rather expensive clothing. So he represents probably a wealthy person from town. Again, you have the contemporary clothing. And and they were playing cards. But he's having some cards in the back. So I think they're trying to cheat him out of some money. And also, even though they were probably playing, and then there's commotion, and it's hard to see. But there's the money that they were playing for is on the table, and probably almost instinctively, as the commotion was going on, he put his hand on it to say, "Oh, okay, if something happens, I'm going to get the money." So he makes sure he has the money. And he also has a little dagger in the back. He would probably be willing to fight for the money. I think Sarah and I would be interested to hear what your audience thinks about this. To include a scene like this in a rather biblical painting, I think the painter, the artist, tries to bring these biblical stories more into our life and to say there's deception going on. Peter, he's denying Jesus, and so there's deception. But in our daily life, there's deception going on all the time. And also kind of a loss of innocence, potentially. So, do you agree with this, or why do you think Sarah's made this interesting combination of two different groups of people in the painting?
It looks to me like the people playing cards were caught by surprise as to what's happening over here with Peter. You know, like they're playing cards and they're not even concerned about what's happening in their surroundings. And all of a sudden there's just commotion over there. So
Yeah.
and that comes like they're surprised.
Yeah. They were, and very much they weren't aware of what was going on at that time about Jesus, and I think that's a nice lead into a potential thought to what happened. Really concerned at that time when it happened, when Jesus was betrayed and when it was crucifixion was taking place. It was really a very small group of people that were intimately involved in this. And so, with this, placing it amongst the general population, it again kind of draws us in and says, this all happened, but we are still surprised, potentially, that it happened. Yeah.
I was just going to say that the two men beside Peter, it kind of reminds me a little bit of one of the paintings we did in the past, The Temptation of Jesus. It's almost like, especially that Temptation of Jesus where Satan looks like a child. So it's almost like these two men are tempting Peter to deny Christ. And everybody else who's gambling and something, it's almost like this is like a representation of evil. And it's like, Peter, are you going to deny Jesus or not? But you're being tempted to by these almost like representatives of Satan or demons in the painting.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think that's a very nice interpretation. Yes, very much so.
To me, it looks like it's representing the situation we're in right now. You know, that the world on the right has lost sight of God completely.
Yeah.
And the minority are even denying God. You know, it relates to the war war that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that, Putin is saying, we're evil because we're so separated from God.
Uh-huh.
And that's what's going on. There's a coming back to the presence of God in war. It's kind of like the world needs to wake up.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus also tells Peter, I think in the Last Supper discourse in the Gospel of John, something like, Satan demanded to sift you like wheat. And so, again, it's almost like this is Satan going after Peter when Jesus isn't around.
Oh, he succeeds. Is that what
At this moment, yeah, because Peter denies Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
So I noticed that Peter has blue, which you said earlier was heavenly. He's got a blue undergarment. Is there anything to do with that?
We're back to the colors. Of course I saw that, and I don't know. Yeah.
One possibility that I'm thinking of is that after the denial, Peter went out and wept bitterly.
So Peter
Went out and wept bitterly. He recognized his deception, and it was not something that he wasn't like Judas who despaired.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So perhaps that's what I think. A little bit.
So just a question. Do you think because Peter is pointing to his heart that it pains him to deny Christ? And then when Christ asked him later on after the resurrection, do you love me? It's a change of heart. Not his love. That it pains him to deny Christ? I don't know. I just thought.
That's an interesting thought. I think these paintings are open to a lot of interpretation, and what I like to think about the paintings, there is not, unless the artist has given a written documentation about the paintings and how we should read them, I think it leaves a lot of room for our personal interpretation of the paintings and what we kind of see. And obviously there are patterns and there are certain things that can be interpreted in a similar way, but I think they still leave a lot of room for personal interpretation. Yeah, it's
One question.
Sure.
These two men here, what do they symbolize?
I think so. This one, he seems to be a soldier, and this one, well, yeah, I think he's kind of pointing at Peter and saying, kind of is one of the three that asked him. And he's like, didn't I see you out there as well? So I think he's also just because it was two kinds of maids and one was a bystander. So I think it could be that figure, and he's kind of pointing at Peter.
And then the man in front of him?
Well, I think he's part of the group.
Wearing a hat?
Yeah, but they're all wearing this. I think that was just kind of a a fashion of the Renaissance. And they're very contemporary artwork, contemporary clothing.
Based on what you said, we've got the servant confronting him first. The guard saying, I saw you there. And technically the third person who's hand raised, I saw you too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
The other thing I thought was interesting is, based on everything I've always heard of the situation, here was warming himself by a fire, and yet we have only candlelight.
He was.
Warming himself by a fire when he.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
But yet, in this picture, there's artistic license, if you may, and the artist provides the light with candles, not on fire.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think they were not necessarily following the story very precisely in terms of the setting itself. Yeah. But again, a candle is just a smaller fire or a smaller, not so much for the warmth, but still for the enlightening. Yes.
Peter's left hand, the other.
Oh, I think you need
Yes.
more.
Peter's left hand, wrist, is the hand of the other man in the background. And it's like, is he pulling him into sin?
Okay.
Or what is, it's very obvious.
Yes, no, that's, yeah, but it's along your thought that you kind of present the devil and tempting him, yeah, and he's kind of even pulling him onto his side, and that's true, because again, we make the distinction between the divine side and the human side. He's kind of pulling him into the other side of the picture, yeah. Yes, I think, thank you so much. This was a wonderful evening, certainly for me. I hope you enjoyed it. And I will see you again. And I left a question for you to contemplate on your see you next week. Thank you very much.